What's going on, everybody? Just want to get on here and bring everybody back to now. Appreciate you all being here and vibing with me for a bit. I want to talk today kind of about what's going on in my space, my bubble, and that has to do with really releasing a lot of programming when it comes to fear and concern, grief. I had an incident yesterday where my dog ended up getting into some poison, and she made it through the night. Actually, is doing miraculously well. She seems just normal and everything. I think really thankful for you guys' support and your prayers. And I wanted to share kind of like the process of what's been going on with that, because with like a poisoning, there's like a real sense of time, where it's like there's like this buildup of like, is something bad going to happen? Is something bad going to happen? Is something bad going to happen? And these are all kind of these thoughts of like reacting thoughts of fear to the situation. And I want to share kind of like how I was like processing that and dealing with that. I'm still doing that, because there's still a lot of emotions, a lot of things that have kind of surfaced because of this. And I think it might be helpful for others, especially with like what's going on in the world. This whole experience is kind of gave me a different perspective on maybe like the suffering of others when it comes to like the virus and like the fear of death and stuff like that. Because like for me, I haven't really been really in a state of fear about like health for my own being. It's like something. I feel like I spent a lot of time. Kind of processing that and like preparing, I guess, for that. But when you see it in maybe loved ones or people you care about, it's kind of a different story. And so hopefully this is helpful to kind of bring peace if you're feeling real on edge, or you're worried about somebody, or it's like in the world all the things that could have been done physically and mechanically have been done, and now it's just in God's hands whether or not there's either like a recovery or maybe not, or who knows. This is all some stuff I'm still working on in my own faith. Like maybe for others it'd be like, oh, all health is just it's all, that's part of God's promises. It's always health, always this and always that. And I'm still exploring these things, and so with everything I'm saying, go within, connect with God yourself, because that connection is inside of you. It's almost like maybe like visually, if you can like imagine like, with your phone, being connected to like the internet and, me at this moment, but like your connection to God is through that interconnection. So you're plugged into infinite intelligence is maybe one way to describe that. You're plugged into love. So you don't have to face these battles alone. That's it's important to know that. And so one of the things that I start to do, when faced start to being tempted with fear, fear of worrying, worrying for others is ultimately not trusting. It's not faith, and it's not who we are. And so how can we start to change that around when that starts being creeping into our consciousness? I found gratitude to be very helpful in making that choice in the moment. When you recognize that, it's only over now. So am I going to spend the now worrying, plotting, scheming, trying to get to the bottom of it, trying to, through effort and force and just, well, if I just focus my attention strong enough, then something can happen. If I just pray hard enough, then that effort will pay off. Letting go of all these things and really just handing those over. Realizing that there's always a choice, and the choice is: am I going to listen to the mind of fear, or am I going to listen to the mind of love? And how am I going to interpret this? Hand that over to the Holy Spirit and ask, how can this be reinterpreted? I don't see the love yet. I don't see how this is somehow benefiting me and my spiritual walk. I don't get it. And be open to that. Be open to like, I don't understand what any of this means. The ego likes to like thinks that it knows what everything is. Well, this happened because of this, and it's got a label, it's got an excuse for everything, and most of the time, if not every single time, it's wrong. It's part of the insanity of continuing to listen to that guide, is it just spins you in loops, and in that loop, you're just suffering for a future that isn't real. So it's like your choices: are you going to spin in circles in the now, or are you going to listen to the actual guide that's helpful, the Holy Spirit? And so, in that, really getting into that inward connection, but also, getting into the Bible, and I encourage you guys to get into the Bible for yourself, and to trust the Holy Spirit's interpretation within you of what the Bible means, what these verses means. Connect with, see the roadmap that Jesus laid out. Connect with God in that inner interpretation as you're reading. Start being more conscious of that, because there's a lot of stuff in the Bible that will trigger you, or at least it will trigger your ego, and instead of spinning out on that, listening to the ego's interpretation of what these words mean. The ego has no idea what the Bible actually is or means, and so come with an open heart, and just be like, I'm open to I got this serious issue, or I think I have an issue. What's the answer? What does God say is real? I like to get into the promises of God personally, because it's already laid out. It's like I don't got to reinvent it. I just need to take God at His word and come to an agreement within myself, and just trust. There's nothing I need to do. And with that, the first major choice is, in this moment, I choose to listen to the Holy Spirit. Release all sense of I understand what's happening. I know what's happening. I know what's best, and be open to that inner guidance. And sometimes it can, when something first happens, with my dog, that first response, that inward response, that you need to get to charcoal. It's like you almost start to get this inner knowing of what to do in each moment as you just really ask, and just I'm going to go for it. Whatever you say, I'm going to do. In the physical, but now what do I need to do in the spiritual? What do I need to do in my consciousness to, see what's going on in reality, and not through the lens of fear, not through the lens of worst case scenario. And gratitude is part of that switch. So instead of seeing an event, maybe somebody just got some bad news, maybe some terminal thing, maybe they're afraid of a sickness or illness, or who knows, all the things that can pop up. Instead of focusing on the problem, in every moment, start focusing on what's around right now I can be grateful for. And that's something I was doing, with my dog. There she is right now. She's walking around just fine, healthy as can be. And thank God, for that she's happy, that she's healthy, that she's walking around right now. Start looking at your situation, start seeing what you can be thankful for about it. My dog, she's 16 years old. That's for a dog in the United States, at least. That's a long life. And part of this process, though, is realizing how much I love that dog, and really getting to a space of being able to process those feelings, process these emotions, be thankful in this moment right now. She's not in pain. She's with me. Everything's good. It might be tempted with some fear of, well, what if tomorrow something bad happens, or what if an hour from now something bad happens? What if in half an hour something bad happens? Or what if these types of things that start to creep into our mind from the old guide. Really letting go of a lot of that, and in that process working on that relationship with God. And now nothing is an accident or coincidence. Everything has happened for a reason. I don't understand what it is. I don't know. The ego likes to think it knows. But ultimately, accepting that that God has a plan, and in that plan there's love somehow. Maybe the ego wants to show you every reason why that's wrong. Oh, because this is bringing blah blah blah, whatever the excuse of this thing is. Whatever that is isn't thankful. It isn't peaceful. Isn't joyful right now. Isn't happy. And regardless of what may be happening outside in the external world, your perception of it, you always have this choice of how you're going to respond. You have the choice to suffer and be in pain and be angry and be fearful, feeling separation from everything, and that you're alone, and worst case scenario land, and you got to survival of the fittest. You got to get them before they get you, and if something's a threat, you just got to kill it and be done with it, and all of this type of thinking that not to even sit there and judge it, because it has brought us to this moment where we can make a new choice, and it's been part of this whole spiritual experience is this old mind and I don't want to say versus like it's a battle. It's just letting go of an illusion or an error in thought and replacing it with love, or I don't know how else to describe it, because it's almost like once you process these things internally and let it go, your perception of reality starts to change, and it changes for what I would say is the better, because you're at peace, you're feeling more joy, and it's more of an expansion feeling where it's like the peace I feel today compared to maybe, I don't know, previously on the walk, it's expanding, it's growing, it's more so each day. Do I get tempted with fear? Do I get tempted with anger? Or do I get tempted with the ideas of reacting and feeling like all of a sudden God's doing something to hurt me or make me upset or suffer, or do that to anybody I love and care about? It's all part of this thing. We're starting to move in a new direction in the now, gently, not to attack and battle with your old thought process, not to go to war with it, and through sheer willpower, I'm going to overcome these things. You gotta let these things go. God knows where you're at, and God is ultimately doing it to you. God is, there's nothing we can really do, other than align and choose to listen to the voice for God. What's going on in this situation? What's going on today? What's going on right now? Tomorrow doesn't really matter. Tomorrow is an illusion of the mind. Everything that comes from that then too. What can we do now? To maybe express more love to the people that we actually care about. That's one of the things about when there's kind of an event, maybe a storm or whatever you want to call these things, where they kind of shake you up out of your routine. It's like you got your normal kind of day-to-day flow. I do, at least, and it's like it's somewhat predictable. But then you have these events that out of nowhere it just rocks your world, and it's like, what? Didn't see that coming, and now it's like the routine has been disrupted, and now there's this uneasy feeling. Do you choose to respond in fear in the moment that doesn't really help the situation, or are you going to choose a new path right now? I'm going to choose to be grateful that in this moment I still am surrounded by the people that I love. You start baby steps. It's hard to go from full throttle when you're really triggered to I'm so thankful that this happened. Start small. Start in just what you're happy or what you can be grateful for in this moment. The fact that since I started this, I didn't have to take one conscious breath. God has been breathing for me. That's a really helpful technique for me, is to look at that, like these like maybe subconscious things, where we're breathing, we don't got to pay attention to, or our heartbeat, our digestion, our blinking. They just kind of happen. and to really give that to God, like my immune system. I was thinking about that, with everything that's been happening, is, it seems like a lot of like the immune system is your thoughts about it, and you get that faith from your parents that kind of sticks with you. But as you get older, or you perceive yourself to be getting older, it's almost like you get these challenges to your faith in like your body's ability to heal. And it's not even your body. If you change your mindset about it, just think of it as God's system, or God's I don't know. It's like God's design. It's like it's designed to always be healed. I don't have to worry about it. That's God doing God's thing through me. Just like I don't have to be conscious of breathing. I don't need to be conscious, and through my own effort and willpower, I'm going to think myself into being well. I'm just going to let go and just trust that that God is already doing it, has already done it. It's like, when God sees you, God already sees you as perfect. You are healed now. It's always, bringing that into the moment. It's always bringing it into now. It's just realizing these things, realizing that, it's that blessing isn't the future. The blessing is now, and connecting with it more and more so now. One of the best ways to do that is through gratitude. And it shifts kind of that, if I only had mindset that is real prevalent, in my life at least, of like, always trying to strive for the next thing. And I don't think there's anything really necessarily wrong with that desire, because, part of love and joy and peace and, all these types of things is expansion, expanding and growing, so I don't think, part of the evolution of like, wanting more things or more responsibilities, or influencing more people, or being a blessing to more people, or any of these types of things, or bad ambitions. I think it's the exact opposite. It shows that you're wanting to grow. You've got that thirst. And but with that, stewarding these things. And because there have been so many times in my own life where it's just, even recently, I haven't worked in like, I don't know, maybe 3 weeks. Ever since I did that renovation job, I just, did a little job yesterday and I didn't finish it, and I have to go back tomorrow to finish it. So, I worked for a couple hours, hanging drywall today, and that was enough. And the freedom that I have on a day-to-day thing, a lot of times I don't appreciate that, and just being real, it's just if I just had some more maybe money, that comes in this way, or this or that. But it's like I really need to focus on what the blessings that are all around me, and just comparing now to where I was at, maybe my darkest days in jail. And I don't even know if that was the darkest time. There was like a real bad stretch where, I had a bunch of legal issues, and it was multiple legal issues. It wasn't just, a one-time thing. It was getting to be, a reputation type thing in the town I was living in. And it's like, I got to the point cops would just pull me over because they thought I was up to something, and maybe because I was in a lot of ways. It was big evolution change. But like really reflecting on that, it almost feels like looking at a ghost. But like there's always improvement. And so gratitude for me is something I'm going to continuously realize more and more, and not be, if I only had this, or I feel like that's one of the kind of the stumbling blocks, maybe like the law of attraction vibe, or like manifestation vibe of always like chasing these states of consciousness. And and that's all interpretation, because if you're desiring heaven right now, a lot of those teachings are helpful. A lot of because they're based on biblical concepts, that Jesus told us were possible. Anything that we ask in prayer, believe that you receive it and it's yours. these are biblical concepts, but there's also paths and maybe easier ways to go about it. Part of that, just in myself is like when you get into like an autotelic, it's like who you are starts to reflect out, and you start to deal with brighter and brighter situations as you take your hands off the wheel. The ego wants to control everything. The ego wants to basically be like a genie that just I'm just going to think about something, and then in this specific way I'm going to get it. And even when you get things like that, there is like a temporary feeling of like, cool, I got it. But then there's never any lasting gratitude. There's never any lasting joy. It's always fleeting, and it's always back to the same. Well, if I just got it, maybe more next time, then that payoff of joy. The ego doesn't know what joy is. or happiness or any of these types of things. And so listening to that guide to bring you down, boils down to the choice that we got to make in this moment. We're going to stop listening to it. So I'm gonna make a new choice. You can choose. You always have the choice. Now, that's when you make the choice. You make the choice in the present, and it's always in the present when you do that. And as you do, you start to see how by following the right guide, well, now all of a sudden, your relationship with the external world is brighter, better situations. Will there be some storms that the ego might perceive? Who knows? This is really about you and God, and ultimately healing these errors in thought, these fears, and letting go of them. And once you do, you realize that you're not fear. and the thing with like faith, and all these things, we've already been given these blessings, and so gratitude is a gigantic step forward in just in enjoying life, and not striving for all these things that don't really bring anything other than just busy work. It's just busy work, spinning around the hamster wheel. And so that's what I wanted to share with you guys, and really focusing on what to be grateful for in the moment instead of getting lost in fears and what ifs. What if something terrible happens? What if something you guys know what it is. Instead of listening to that, I choose peace. I choose to listen to what God has to say right now, and then get into the Bible, get into maybe a meditative state, be still, and let the Holy Spirit within you guide you on what to do. If that means listening to the promises of God, then listen to the promises of God. If it means listening to what Jesus had to say, listen to what Jesus had to say. If that means whatever that means for you, it's very unique. Everything is very unique, and I just wanted to share that with you guys, bring that to your attention. Also, if anybody was concerned about from the previous video, everything as of right now, thank God that my dog's okay, and thank you for your prayers, and I thank you for your attention, and liking, sharing, subscribing, your support, in the physical and non-physical. I appreciate all that, and I like to wrap these things up with a quote-unquote random Bible verse. Nothing's random. God's 100% in control of literally everything, and speaks to us in the moment. I just want to give God a chance to speak to you, who's ever listening now. Let's see what He's got to say. Isaiah 34:16. Seek ye out of the book of the Lord and read. No one of these shall fail. None shall want her mate, for my mouth it hath commanded, and His Spirit it hath gathered them. There you go. And with that being said, I appreciate you guys, and until the next now, I appreciate you guys, and have a good rest of your your now, and God bless.